Ripples of the Heart. Chapter 1, The Ordinary Day. Hanna had been walking 30 minutes and came to the park where she sat on the wooden bench by the pond and let her dog loose to go and sniff around the flower benches. She let out a long sigh and had a mental walkthrough of her day. Morning walk with Bunny, quick breakfast for them both before hurrying to office. Whole morning routine at work with no highlights to find as it was always. Same shared pleasantries and same tasting. Lunch at the cafeteria. Afternoon copy of what was before lunch and finally home where fortunately was Bunny to feel waited for. But was this it, her life? No person to share with and no accomplishment worth mentioning. She had dated, sort of, sometimes, but never felt any deep feelings for anyone. Or for her own family, of course. But not in a romantic sense. The April evening was soft and warm, with that golden light that made everything look like a painting. Around the pond, other people were ending their days too, joggers cooling down, elderly couples feeding ducks, children squealing as their parents called them toward home. All of them seemed to belong to someone, to have purpose and connection that eluded her. Hanna pulled out her phone, scrolled through social media for 30 seconds, then put it away with another sigh. Even digital connection felt hollow when you had no one who truly cared whether you posted or not. Bunny, a golden retriever mix with more enthusiasm than sense, had discovered something fascinating near the water's edge and was barking excitedly. Hanna looked up to see what had caught her attention, expecting to find a duck or perhaps a discarded sandwich. Instead, she saw a man crouched by the water, perfectly still, watching something beneath the surface. With intense concentration. He was dressed simply in jeans and a dark sweater, but there was something about his stillness that seemed almost supernatural. While everything else in the park moved with the restless energy of evening, children running, dogs playing, couples walking, he remained motionless as a statue. "Bunny, come here," Hanna called, but her dog was having none of it. Instead, Bunny trotted over to the stranger and sat beside him, as if she recognized a kindred spirit. The man looked up at Bunny's approach, and even from across the small clearing, Hanna felt something shift in her chest. His face was striking, not conventionally handsome, but compelling in a way that made her forget to breathe. Dark hair that looked like it had been tousled by wind, skin with the kind of tan that spoke of time spent outdoors, and eyes that even at this distance seemed to hold depths she wanted to explore. He smiled at Bunny, reaching out to scratch behind her ears, and Hanna heard herself making a small sound of surprise. She had never seen her dog take to a stranger so immediately. Bunny was friendly but cautious, usually requiring several meetings before she fully trusted someone. The man looked up then, his gaze finding Hanna across the space between them, and she felt that shift in her chest become a full earthquake. His eyes were blue, not the pale blue of winter sky, but the deep blue-green of ocean depths. And when he smiled at her, it was like watching sunrise. "I'm sorry," he called out, his voice carrying easily across the water. "I think I've stolen your dog." Hanna found herself standing without conscious decision, drawn toward him like metal to magnet. She doesn't usually. She trailed off as she got closer, because up close, the man was even more compelling. There was something about him that made the ordinary evening feel suddenly full of possibility. "Doesn't usually what?" he asked gently, still scratching Bunny's ears. Her traitorous dog was practically melting under his attention. "Make friends so quickly," Hanna finished, finding her voice. "She's friendly, but cautious. I've never seen her take to someone like this." The man looked down at Bunny, then back at Hanna, and his expression grew thoughtful. "Animal sense. Things we don't," he said. "Maybe she knows something you don't." "Like what?" "Like." He paused, seeming to consider his words carefully. "Like maybe some meetings are meant to happen." There was something in his tone that made Hanna's pulse quicken. Not pickup line charm, but a deeper certainty, as if he were stating a simple fact about the nature of the universe. "I'm Hanna," she said, settling onto the grass beside him. The proper thing would have been to call Bunny and continue their walk, but something about this moment felt too important to rush. "Marcus," he replied. "And I think Bunny here might be the wisest creature in this park." Hanna looked down at her dog, who was now lying contentedly between them, and realized that for the first time in months, maybe years, she felt genuinely happy. Not just content or distracted, but actually happy. "What were you looking at in the water?" she asked, curious about what had held his attention so completely. Marcus's expression grew mysterious. "Would you believe me if I said I was watching the water? Remember?" "Remember what?" "Every story it's ever been part of. Every reflection it's held, every life it's sustained, every secret it's kept." Marcus dipped his hand into the pond, and Hanna could have sworn the water responded to his touch, moving in patterns that weren't quite natural. Water has the longest memory of any element. Touch it with the right kind of attention, and it shares its stories. Hanna stared at him, trying to decide if he was eccentric, artistic, or possibly a little unhinged. But looking at his face, she saw only sincerity and a kind of deep knowing that made her want to believe him. "That's either the most beautiful thing I've heard all day," she said slowly, "or the strangest. Can't it be both?" Marcus's smile was warm and genuine, and Hanna felt something inside her that had been sleeping for years begin to stir. This was what she had been missing, she realized. Not just romantic connection, but this feeling of wonder, of possibility, of meeting someone who saw magic in the world. "Show me," she said impulsively. "Show you what?" "How to listen to the water stories." Marcus studied her face for a long moment, as if weighing something important. Then he nodded and shifted closer to her, close enough that she could smell his scent, clean and earthy, like rain on summer stones. "Give me your hand," he said softly. Hanna hesitated for only a moment before placing her palm in his. The instant their skin touched, she felt a jolt of connection that went far beyond simple attraction. It was recognition, as if her soul had been waiting for exactly this moment, this person. Marcus guided her hand toward the water, and as their joined fingers broke the surface, Hanna gasped. The world around them shifted. The park was still there, but now she could see it layered with time, shadows of the past and possibilities of the future flickering like double-exposed photographs. The pond was no longer just a small body of water in a city park, but a window into something vast and eternal. And in that water, she saw stories. A young couple from the 1940s, sneaking away for stolen moments during wartime. Children from decades past, sailing paper boats while their mothers gossiped on nearby benches. Lovers throughout the years, finding each other and losing each other and finding each other again, all of their joys and sorrows reflected in the patient water. But more than that, she saw herself. Not just present-day Hanna, but flashes of someone who looked like her in different times, different places. Always by water, always searching for something just out of reach. "Oh," she breathed, not sure if she was speaking to Marcus or to the universe itself. "You see it," Marcus said, and his voice carried wonder and relief in equal measure. "I wasn't sure you would be ready." "Ready for what?" "To remember who you really are." Hanna tried to pull her hand back, but Marcus held on gently. "I know it's overwhelming," he said. "But please, don't run." "Not yet." "What's happening to me?" "You're waking up," Marcus said simply. "To magic, to possibility, to the truth about yourself." The visions in the water were becoming more focused now, centered on a story that felt both foreign and familiar. A woman who looked exactly like her, standing by a moonlit lake, calling to someone she loved. And answering that call, rising from the water itself, a man who looked exactly like Marcus. "How is this possible?" Hanna whispered. "Some souls find each other again and again," Marcus said softly. "Across lifetimes, across worlds. There. Drawn together like the tide to the shore, inevitable and eternal." "Are you saying we've met before?" "I'm saying I've been looking for you for a very long time." Hanna stared into his eyes, those impossible blue-green depths, and felt something deep inside her. Recognized the truth of his words. The loneliness that had been her constant companion, the feeling that something essential was missing from her life, the way she had always felt drawn to water without understanding why, it all suddenly made sense. "Who are you?" she asked. "Really?" Marcus smiled, and for just a moment, she could swear she saw something otherworldly flicker behind his human appearance. "Someone who loves you across time and space," he said. "Someone who's been waiting for you to remember that you love me too." As if summoned by his words, the water around their joined hands began to glow with soft, silver light. And somewhere in the distance, Hanna could hear the sound of waves on an impossible shore, calling her home. Chapter 2, Awakening Memories. The silver light faded gradually, leaving them sitting by an ordinary pond in an ordinary park. But nothing felt ordinary anymore. Hanna's entire world had shifted on its axis, and she was struggling to find her balance. "This is crazy," she said, but she didn't pull her hand away from Marcus's. The warmth of his skin against hers felt like the only real thing in a universe that had suddenly become fluid and strange. "Crazy," Marcus agreed with a soft smile. "But also true." Bunny, who had been lying quietly during their otherworldly experience, suddenly sat up and barked. Once, as if agreeing with Marcus. Hanna looked down at her dog and realized that Bunny's eyes held an intelligence that seemed almost human. "Even my dog is in on this, isn't she?" "Animals remember more than humans do," Marcus said. "They don't forget their connections across lifetimes. Bunny has been with you before, in other forms, other lives." "She's a reincarnated soul too?" "Loyal souls tend to travel in packs," Marcus said, scratching Bunny's head. "You, me, her, we're bound together by love that's stronger than death." Hanna felt tears pricking her eyes, though she wasn't sure if they were from joy or overwhelming confusion. "I don't understand any of this. Yesterday I was just ordinary lonely office worker with a dog. And no real purpose. Now you're telling me I'm part of some eternal love story?" "You were never ordinary," Marcus said with gentle conviction. "You were just sleeping. Waiting for the right moment to wake up. And that moment was today? When I decided to sit by this random pond?" "This isn't a random pond, Hanna." Marcus gestured toward the water, which still seemed to shimmer with residual magic. "This is one of the thin places, where the barriers between worlds are weak. You've been drawn here for weeks, haven't you?" Hanna's breath caught. She had been coming to this park almost daily for the past month, always ending up on this particular bench by this particular pond. She had told herself it was for Bunny's exercise, but now she realized it was something else entirely. "How did you know that?" "Because I've been here too, waiting. I felt you getting closer, felt your soul starting to stir. Tonight was the first time you were ready to see." "See what, exactly?" "Because I'm still not sure what I saw in that water." Marcus stood, offering her his hand. "Come with me, and I'll show you more. But not here, too many people, too much interference from the modern world." Hanna hesitated. Every rational part of her brain was screaming warnings about following strange men to unknown locations. But a deeper part of her, a part that felt ancient and wise, was urging her to trust him. Where? Somewhere the old magic still runs strong. Somewhere we can talk properly without the noise of the city drowning out the truth. Hanna looked around the park, at the joggers and dog walkers and families finishing their evening routines. Everything looked so normal, so mundane. But underneath it all, she could now sense something else, a humming in the air, a sense of vast currents flowing just beneath the surface of reality. "If I come with you," she said slowly, "will you answer all my questions? Will you tell me everything?" "Everything I can," Marcus promised. "Some things you'll need to remember for yourself, but I'll help you any way I can." Hanna clipped Bunny's leash back on and stood, her hand still in Marcus's. "Okay. But if you turn out to be some kind of serial killer, I'm going to be very disappointed." Marcus laughed, and the sound was like music. "I promise you, Hanna, I'm many things, but I'm not a serial killer." "What kind of things?" Marcus's expression grew mysterious again. "That's part of what I need to show you." They walked through the park in comfortable silence, Bunny trotting contentedly beside them. As they moved away from the busy areas and toward the more secluded paths, Hanna became aware of the world around her in a way she never had before. Every tree seemed to pulse with quiet life, every flower held secrets in its petals, and the very air sparkled with possibility. "How long have you been looking for me?" she asked as they followed a winding path that seemed to lead away from the city lights. "In this life?" "About 30 years. In total?" Marcus paused, considering. "Several centuries." "Several centuries?" Hanna stopped walking. "How old are you?" "Older than I look," Marcus said simply. "Time works differently when you're not entirely human." "Not entirely human?" "I'm what you might call a water spirit, though that's not quite accurate. I'm a guardian of the spaces between worlds, a keeper of old magic. I exist partially in your reality and partially in somewhere else." Hanna stared at him, trying to reconcile this revelation with the very real, very human man walking beside her. "You're not human?" "I'm human enough," Marcus said softly. "Human enough to love you, human enough to be hurt by our separations, human enough to spend lifetimes searching for you." "And me? Am I human?" "You're human in this life, yes. But your soul is older than that, deeper than that. You're what we call a bridge soul, someone who can exist fully in multiple realities, who can love across the boundaries of species and worlds." They had reached a part of the park Hanna had never seen before, where ancient trees formed a natural cathedral and the city lights seemed impossibly distant. In the center of the clearing was another body of water, not a pond this time, but a natural spring that bubbled up from underground sources. "This is beautiful," Hanna breathed. "I had no idea this was here." "Most people can't find it unless they're meant to," Marcus said. "It's one of the old places, protected by magic that's older than the city, older than most human civilization." As they approached the spring, Hanna could feel power radiating from the water. Not threatening or overwhelming, but warm and welcoming, like coming home after a long journey. "This is where we first met," Marcus said quietly. "Not in this life, but in the very first one. You were a priestess of the water goddess, I was her guardian. We fell in love despite the rules that forbade such unions." "What happened?" "We were separated by those who feared what our love might create. But before we were parted, we made a vow that we would find each other in every life, that love would always bring us back together." Marcus knelt by the spring and dipped his hand into the water. Immediately, the surface began to glow with that same silver light Hanna had seen at the pond. But this time, the light was stronger, more focused. "Look," Marcus said. "Remember." Hanna knelt beside him and placed her hand over his in the glowing water. The moment she made contact, the world around them dissolved, and she was elsewhere, elsewhen. She stood in a temple made of living stone, wearing robes that flowed like water itself. Around her, Priestesses chanted in harmonies that made the very air sing. And walking toward her across the sacred pool came a man whose beauty took her breath away, tall and graceful, with eyes like ocean storms and a smile that promised forever. "Nerita," he said, and his voice was like the sound of waves on distant shores. "Kale," she replied, and in that single word was contained all the love in all the worlds. They came together in the center of the sacred pool, hands joining, souls merging, while around them the water sang with joy and the very stones of the temple rang like bells. Hanna gasped and pulled her hand back, the vision fading. But the memory remained, crystal clear and undeniably real. "Nerita," she whispered. "My name was Nerita." "Yes, Marcus," Kale said softly. "And you remember now, don't you? You remember what we were to each other." Hanna looked into his eyes and felt the full weight of centuries of love and loss and desperate searching crash over her. She remembered not just that first life, but glimpses of others, a merchant's daughter who fell in love with a mysterious sailor, a Victorian woman who met her beloved by a moonlit lake, a war nurse who found solace in the arms of a man who seemed to walk between worlds. "I remember," she whispered. "I remember all of it. All the times we found each other, all the times we lost each other." Tears were flowing freely now. "Marcus, the pain. How did you bear it? Watching me die again and again, having to search for me lifetime after lifetime?" "Because I knew we'd always find each other eventually," Marcus said, reaching up to wipe away her tears. "Because love like ours doesn't end with death, it transcends it." "But this time," Hanna said, understanding flooding through her. "This time is different, isn't it?" Marcus nodded, his expression growing serious. "This time, you have a choice. You can remember fully. Accept what you are, and come with me to the place between worlds where we can be together always. Or you can choose to remain human, to live out this life naturally, and we'll find each other again in the next one." "What's the difference?" "If you choose to remain human, you'll have a normal lifespan, a normal life. But you'll also lose these memories again when this body dies. If you choose to come with me." Marcus hesitated. "If I choose to come with you? Then you become like me. Ageless, eternal, bound to the spaces between worlds. We'll never have to say goodbye again, never have to search for each other through the fog of reincarnation. But you'll also never be fully human again." Hanna stared into the glowing spring, seeing infinite possibilities reflected in its depths. A normal life. Job, maybe marriage to someone else, children, growing old and dying while Marcus waited to find her again. Or eternity with the love of her lifetimes, exploring realms beyond imagination, never aging, never parting. "How long do I have to decide?" "The spring will remain open until dawn," Marcus said. "After that, the choice is made either way. If you haven't stepped through by sunrise, you'll return to your human life and forget all of this until we meet again in another lifetime." Hanna looked at Bunny, who had been sitting quietly throughout this entire revelation. "What about her?" "She can come too, if she chooses. Loyal souls are always welcome in the between spaces." As if understanding perfectly, Bunny walked to the edge of the spring and barked once, her tail wagging. "I think that's a yes," Hanna said with a shaky laugh. "What about you?" Marcus asked softly. "What does your heart tell you?" Hanna closed her eyes and listened to the deepest part of herself, the part that had been searching and yearning for something just out of reach her entire life. The part that had never felt complete in the ordinary world, that had always known something essential was missing. When she opened her eyes, Marcus was watching her with an expression of hope and terror and infinite love. "My heart tells me," she said slowly, "that I've been walking through life half asleep, waiting for someone to wake me up. And now that I'm awake." She took his hands in hers, feeling the rightness of the connection down to her bones. "I never want to go back to sleep again." Marcus's smile was radiant. Are you sure? Once we cross over, there's no changing your mind. I've been sure for centuries, Hanna said with growing conviction. I just didn't remember it until now. She looked around the magical clearing one last time, then back at Marcus. Besides, what's the point of living a long human life if it's spent missing the other half of my soul? Chapter 3, The Choice of Forever. The spring bubbled more energetically as they spoke, its silver light pulsing in rhythm with their heartbeats. Hanna could feel magic in the air around them, ancient and patient and welcoming. Tell me what it's like, she said. The place between worlds. Marcus's eyes grew distant with memory. Imagine the most beautiful place you've ever seen, then multiply that by infinity. There are realms of pure music where the landscapes sing symphonies, worlds where the aurora dances not just in the sky but through the very air you breathe. There are libraries that contain every story never told, gardens where each flower holds a different season. It sounds incredible. It is. But Hanna, it's also vast and sometimes lonely. Without you, I've wandered those realms for centuries, seeing all their beauty but never feeling truly complete. They're wonderful, but they're not home. You are home. The simplicity and honesty of his words took her breath away. And if I come with you, we'll never be separated again? Never, Marcus promised. We'll explore every realm together, create new stories, maybe even build our own small world in the spaces between spaces. Time will flow around us like water, but we'll always have each other. Hanna felt a flutter of nervousness. What if I'm not cut out for immortality? What if I get bored, or we get tired of each other, or... Marcus silenced her with a gentle kiss, and the moment their lips touched, Hanna felt every lifetime of love between them flood through her consciousness. The passion of their first meeting as Nerita and Kale, the gentle tenderness of their life as elderly companions in 18th century England, the fierce protectiveness they'd shared during their years as revolutionaries in 1920s Ireland. When they broke apart, Hanna was dizzy with the weight of so much love, so much history. Do you feel that? Marcus asked softly. All of it? Every lifetime, every moment of joy, every second of love? Yes, Hanna whispered. That's what we have to build on. That's what we're choosing. Not just this moment, but all the moments we've shared and all the ones still to come. Hanna looked down at Bunny, who was still sitting by the spring's edge, tail wagging patiently. Are you sure she understands what this means? Animals understand love better than humans do, Marcus said. She knows you're choosing happiness. Choosing wholeness. That's all she wants for you. A cool breeze stirred through the clearing, carrying with it the scent of jasmine and something else. Something that smelled like starlight and possibility. In the distance, Hanna could hear the city continuing its nightly routine, people heading home to their ordinary lives, unaware that magic was happening in a hidden grove just beyond their perception. I should probably call in sick to work tomorrow, Hanna said with a sudden laugh. You should probably call in sick forever, Marcus replied, grinning. My boss is going to be so confused when I never show up again. The magic will handle the details, Marcus assured her. People will remember that you left for a new opportunity, a chance you couldn't pass up. They'll think of you fondly but without confusion or worry. That's convenient. The universe takes care of love stories, Marcus said. It wants them to have happy endings. Hanna took a deep breath, feeling her decision settle into place with the weight of absolute certainty. Then let's give it one. She stood up, Marcus rising beside her, and together they walked to the very edge of the spring. The water was perfectly clear and impossibly deep, reflecting not just their faces but hint of other skies, other worlds. How do we do this? Hanna asked. Together, Marcus said simply. Step into the water together, let it accept us, and let it carry us home. Hanna kicked off her shoes, then looked down at her ordinary clothes, jeans, sweater, sneakers. The outfit of someone living a mundane life in a mundane world. Will I miss it? She asked suddenly. The human world, human experiences? You'll carry the best of it with you, Marcus said. The capacity for wonder, for growth, for deep emotion. But you'll also gain so much more, the ability to experience joy that human hearts are too small to contain, to love with an intensity that mortal frames couldn't survive. And we'll really have forever? Forever and beyond forever, Marcus said. As long as love exists anywhere in any universe, we'll exist. 2. Hanna smiled, feeling lighter than she had in years. Well, when you put it like that. She stepped into the spring, gasping slightly at the perfect temperature of the water. It felt like liquid. Starlight, warm and tingling and alive. Marcus stepped in beside her, Bunny splashing happily after them. Any last words for the ordinary world? Marcus asked as the water began to glow more brightly around them. Hanna looked back through the trees toward the distant city lights, thinking of her little apartment, her boring job, her routine that had felt so empty just hours ago. Thank you, she said softly. Thank you for being the place where I found him again. The water rose around them as they walked deeper into the spring, but instead of getting cold or uncomfortable, Hanna felt increasingly warm and energized. The silver light was intensifying, and she could see doorways beginning to open in the air around them, glimpses of the realms Marcus had described. Ready? Marcus asked, his hand tight in hers. I've been ready for lifetimes, Hanna replied. Together, they stepped forward into the light. The world dissolved around them in a cascade of silver and starlight, and Hanna felt herself being unmade and remade at the most fundamental level. But through it all, Marcus's hand remained steady in hers, and his love remained the constant that guided her through the transformation. When the light faded, they were standing on the shore of a vast lake that reflected a sky full of moons and stars that formed themselves into stories as she watched. The air was warm and sweet, filled with the music of distant celebrations and the laughter of eternal joy. Hanna looked down at herself and gasped. Her ordinary human form had been transformed into something that was still recognizably her, but elevated, perfected. Her skin glowed with inner light, her hair moved as if touched by celestial winds, and when she looked into Marcus's eyes, she could see forever reflected there. Welcome home, Marcus said, and his voice now carried harmonics that spoke directly to her soul. Bunny barked once, and when Hanna looked down, she saw that her faithful companion had been transformed too, still unmistakably Bunny, but now with a coat that shimmered like spun golden eyes that held the wisdom of ages. This is real, Hanna said wonderingly. This is actually real. As real as love, Marcus confirmed. As real as the connection between us. He gestured toward the lake, where other figures were emerging from the water, other lovers who had chosen eternity together, other souls who had found their way home. They moved with grace and joy. And Hanna could feel their happiness like warm sunlight on her skin. Come, Marcus said, taking her hand again. Let me show you the worlds we're going to explore together. As they walked along the starlit shore, Hanna felt complete for the first time in any lifetime. The emptiness that had haunted her human existence was gone, filled with the presence of her eternal love. And the promise of infinite tomorrows. Behind them, the portal to the human world shimmered once and then closed, sealing them into their chosen forever. And ahead of them stretched eternity itself, vast and beautiful and full of possibilities they would discover together. I love you, Hanna said, the words carrying new weight and meaning in this realm where emotion could literally reshape reality. I love you too, Marcus replied. Across all worlds, through all time, beyond the boundaries of existence itself. Above them, the story stars pulsed brighter, as if the universe itself was celebrating their reunion. And in The distance, new worlds waited to be explored by two souls who had finally found their way home. To each other. Epilogue, Ever After. 1 year later, in the Between Worlds time. Hanna sat on a hillside that overlooked 17 different realms, each visible through natural archways. Carved from living crystal. In her lap was a sketchbook, not because she needed to draw anymore, but because she enjoyed the simple pleasure of creating with her hands. "What are you working on?" Marcus asked, settling beside her in the silver grass that chimed like bells. When the wind touched it. "A map," Hanna said, showing him the intricate drawing she'd been creating. "Of all the places we've been, all the worlds we've seen. I want to remember everything." Marcus smiled, wrapping his arm around her. In this realm, physical affection created visible auroras in the air around them, and the sky above them bloomed with colors that had no names in any human language. "You don't need to worry about forgetting," he said. "Not anymore." "I know. But I like having a record." And Hanna paused, a secret smile playing around her lips. "I'm thinking we might want to share our adventures with someone else someday." Marcus looked at her more closely, sensing the hidden meaning in her words. "Someone else?" Hanna placed her hand over her heart, where a new kind of light was beginning to grow, the light of a soul choosing to be born into their eternal love. In the realms between worlds, children were not conceived in the human way, but through the conscious decision of two souls to create a third, to bring new consciousness into existence through the pure force of their combined love. "Really?" Marcus breathed, wonder filling his voice. "Really," Hanna confirmed. "She'll be born from starlight and story, from our love and all the love we've shared across all our lifetimes. She'll be a bridge between bridges, able to walk in any world she chooses." Marcus pulled her closer, his joy creating small supernovas in the air around them. When the next story season begins," Hanna said. "In about 6 months, human time." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sunset that painted all 17 visible realms in shades of gold and rose. Bunny, who had been exploring a nearby grove of singing trees, came trotting back with a flower in her mouth, not an ordinary flower, but one that bloomed in 7 dimensions and granted small wishes to those pure of heart. "I think she approves," Marcus said, as Bunny dropped the flower in Hanna's lap and settled down beside them. "I think she's been waiting for this as long as we have," Hanna replied, scratching behind her companion's ears. "Haven't you, girl?" Bunny barked once in agreement, her tail wagging so hard it created small tornadoes of glittering air. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, stars that were actually distant celebrations, other love stories reaching their happy conclusions, Hanna reflected on the year that had passed since she'd chosen forever. They had explored realms of pure music where symphonies grew like gardens, worlds where the seasons changed according to the emotions of those who lived there, dimensions where mathematics took physical form and danced through the air. They had met other eternal lovers, beings of such beauty and wisdom that human language had no words for them, and creatures so alien that they communicated entirely through the sharing of dreams. But more than the wonders they'd seen, Hanna treasured the simple moments, mornings spent talking until the sun equivalents rose in whatever realm they were visiting, evenings dancing to music that only they could hear, quiet times when they simply existed together in perfect contentment. "Do you ever regret it?" Marcus asked suddenly. "Giving up your human life?" Hanna considered the question seriously. Did she miss anything about her old existence? The coffee shop on the corner, maybe. The satisfaction of finishing a particularly challenging work project. The feeling of rain on her skin. "No," she said finally. "Because I was never really living before. I was just existing. Waiting for life to begin." She turned to look at him, seeing in his eyes all the love and wonder and infinite possibility that had become her new reality. This is living. This is what I was always meant to be. And our daughter? Marcus asked, his hand moving to cover hers over her heart. Are you ready to share all of this with her? I'm ready to give her something I never had in any of my human lives, Hanna said. Parents who will never leave her, never die, never forget. Love that's infinite and eternal and completely secure. Above them, a shooting star traced across the sky, but in this realm, shooting stars were actually messages from the cosmic forces that governed love and creation. This one was congratulating them on their growing family and blessing the new soul that would soon join them. I love you, Marcus said, as he did every day in this timeless place. I love you too, Hanna replied, as she always did. Forever and beyond forever. And in the distance, their unborn daughter's soul sparkled with anticipation, eager to begin her own eternal adventure in a universe where love really could conquer everything, where happy endings weren't just possible but inevitable, and where the words happily ever after were not the end of the story, but only the beginning. The end.